Thank you so much for joining us. So we've seen so many incredible updates about the Filecoin ecosystem today. I was interested to know, what are some of your personal highlights from 2024?
Yeah, it's absolutely great to be here. I have to say, we really kicked off 2024 on such a high note with one of my personal favorite projects, which is that the network that underlies Filecoin, IPFS, is actually called the Interplanetary File System. And a lot of people, I think, for a long time thought that that was sort of metaphorical. But in reality, IPFS actually works much better for networking in space than traditional storage systems. And so we actually kicked off the year after 3 years of building towards this with actually working with Lockheed Martin Space to put IPFS in space, and successfully did a demo mission that actually used and deployed IPFS in space successfully. So that was sort of how we kicked off the year, and that was, I think, just an incredible highlight after years of work on that project.
Wow, that is very impressive. Actually, just on that, the mission of the Filecoin network is to preserve humanity's most important information. So in addition to that, maybe you can give us a bit of a preview on some of the critical data sets that are actually stored on the network.
Yeah, it's really amazing to see how much incredible data that is so important to the world is actually already stored on the Filecoin network. So just to give you some recent examples, the government of Aruba actually recently announced that it's storing its data via the Democracy's Library project on the Filecoin network. So we're really excited to have the entire government of Aruba's data sets on the Filecoin network as of recently. There's also some amazing work happening with that Democracy's Library project, which is a partnership between FF and the Internet Archive, where what we're doing is really putting a lot of important government data sets from around the world onto the Filecoin network to make sure they're stored permanently. Just one example is doing end-of-term crawls. So when you have an administration that turns over, often a lot of the important data, you can imagine, for example, environmental data that's up on a website ends up getting pulled down. And so it's really important to make sure that at the end of terms, you really do a crawl and preserve that data. So that's another example of the type of data that's being stored right now on the Filecoin network. We also have a lot of amazing human rights data sets. So for example, there is data stored on the Filecoin network that is evidence of war crimes in Ukraine that is actually used and has been submitted to the International Criminal Court. And it's really important because not only is that data stored and preserved permanently, but it's also cryptographically verifiable that it hasn't been tampered with. We have also a lot of evidence of press freedom violations being stored on the network through the Freedom of the Press Foundation. Really amazing work happening with Witness and the Guardian Project and all sorts of other human rights organizations that are using the Filecoin network to store those human rights data sets.
Yeah, congratulations. That's very, very impressive in terms of the type of information that's being stored there. We have heard today that the Filecoin ecosystem is super vibrant in terms of all the different developers and innovators that are working there and contributing. Maybe you could share some more about the standout projects and startups within that ecosystem that are particularly exciting right now.
Yeah, I have to say, I think we're at this moment where there are so many incredible projects that are launching that are making it so much easier to use Filecoin. So for example, just now, Sriracha, right? Having hot storage on the network, so incredible and such an amazing and important use case. We also have projects like Lighthouse, which provide perpetual storage. We have all sorts of really amazing L2s that are launching. And we have, data onboarding tools that are really making it much easier to get data onto the network. So I think we're really at an inflection point with the Filecoin network where it's really becoming a lot easier and more user-friendly thanks to all the amazing teams that are building on the network, a lot of whom are here today actually making important announcements about their really incredible projects.
It does feel like that, an inflection point really in terms of how the ecosystem is building out. So just shifting gears a little bit, you've been extremely active in crypto policy, including testifying in Congress and other legislative bodies all around the world. What are some of the principles that guide you when you're thinking about technology policy?
Yeah, I think when it comes to technology policy, in general, less is more, right? So for the most part, when it comes to technology, you don't necessarily need to regulate a technology per se, right? Like, for example, if you're committing fraud, it doesn't matter what technology you use to commit fraud. Like if you're using the phone or the internet or dollars or, the technology doesn't matter. It's really about the activity. And we already have most laws and regulations that easily apply to new technologies, right? Again, because it's really about the activity. So for the most part, less is more. But there are some areas where it's really important to have clarity, right? For it to be clear. And so those are definitely some of the things that we've been pushing on, particularly in the US, to make sure that it's really clear so that innovators can feel like they can actually build in a particular jurisdiction. So that's really been a huge driver. And I think it's also, I think, to say the least, an inflection point for technology policy in cryptocurrency in the US. And I think it's really important that people, that policymakers really get it right in this moment.
Yeah, I love what you said too about technology itself being neutral, and it's really just about how people use it, but how do we make sure that we have policy and regulation that actually recognizes that rather than, I guess, criminalizing the technology itself. Super interesting. So global elections are wrapping up for the year, and I was wondering, if you had your way, what would be some key messages that you could share with policymakers and the public as some of these conversations around crypto legislation start to renew?
So I think the thing that a lot of policymakers get wrong about cryptocurrency is that they really think of it as a financial thing, right? And something that you need to look at as applying financial regulations to. And I think it's really important to understand that cryptocurrency is about so much more than finance, right? The Filecoin network and all of the applications building on top of the Filecoin network really, I think, underscore that this is a technology that actually has the power to do so much more than finance. When you have the ability to program your money, right, to write a program that says something like, for every second of a song, transfer a millionth of a cent to the songwriter, or, check whether someone's storing my files, and if so, transfer some cryptocurrency to them. When you can do that programming, it unlocks all of these use cases where I think we've really only just scratched the surface, that have nothing to do with finance at all, that are really about this fundamental utility. And I think it's really important that we get that message out there, so when people are thinking about cryptocurrency, they realize it's not just about finance.
Yeah, it's funny how far we've come across the timeline in terms of blockchain and everything it can be used for, and people are still really focused on those financial applications. But today has been great to really kind of shine a light on everything that's possible beyond finance. So, look, one of the major themes, talking about beyond finance, of today was AI and how it overlaps with DePIN. So I was wondering, with your technology and civil liberties lawyer hat on, what do you see as the trajectory for AI?
Yeah, I think one of the things I think there are a couple things that are really important about AI. So the first thing is, today's internet, of course, is highly, highly centralized. And that's really what the Filecoin network is built to address, right? We sort of live our lives in Web 2 through just a handful of corporations, right? And we have no choice but to trust them with our data. Our entire lives really are lived through them, and they're really creating a lot of single points of failure. And so I think in this moment, as AI really is building a lot of momentum, I think we have to ask ourselves, do we want that same centralization in AI, right? As these models become more and more important, do we really want all of that data and all of that important sort of utility to be in the hands of just a few companies? Or do we want to have decentralized alternatives? So I think that's one really important piece of the puzzle. And I think a lot of people are really opening their eyes to the importance of open source and decentralized AI models, which is very important. And I think the second thing that's very important is, data is really the fuel of AI, right? That is the thing that enables AI. And so when it comes to really enabling this absolutely critical, important technology, you have to make sure that data is really available and isn't subject to these kinds of single points of failure that we've seen in the centralized world. So I also think decentralized technologies can play a big role in making sure that we can really enable the power of AI.
Got it. So let's move to your role as president of the Filecoin Foundation. I was just wondering, from your perspective, what do you see as the role of the Filecoin Foundation within the decentralized Filecoin ecosystem?
It's such an amazing ecosystem. There are hundreds of teams and projects building on the network, thousands of developers, thousands of storage providers. It's a really vibrant, decentralized community. For us, we really see our role as being the stewards of the community, of stewarding the open source governance process, and of really helping to grow and empower this amazing decentralized group of people all over in the world who are building and launching and using the technology.
And I guess just to go a little bit deeper on that too, how is the Filecoin Foundation planning to support the ecosystem in 2025? And maybe you could even give us a little peek on the strategic priorities for 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. So we went through a big process this year of making sure we had really solid strategic priorities for the foundation for 2025. So our big theme for the year is making sure that Filecoin works seamlessly and ensuring that we have product market fit. So within that, we have a bunch of strategic priorities that are, what we really see as what we're going to be focusing on in 2025. So the first and most important is that we are waging a war on pain points. So where there are pain points in the Filecoin network, we really want to be addressing those as quickly as possible. And we really want to drive a process as the foundation through which the entire community can build consensus around what the most important pain points are and for us to address, and what the most important actions are for us as a community and as an ecosystem to take in order to make sure that we find product market fit. So that's our first big theme, which is waging a war on pain points. Our second big theme is we really want to shift a culture in our ecosystem from just a launching culture towards more of an iterating culture. We really want to focus on quality and polish and consistency. We also want to really assist storage providers in making sure they are finding profitable business models, through paid storage deals and other means. And of course, we will also be focusing on partnerships, including some phenomenal AI partnerships, many of which have already been announced, but we are looking forward to more of those next year. So we really see this as a moment where we can really do a lot as the Filecoin ecosystem. I mean, even just today, you're seeing these incredible tools launch. And one of the things we also want to really focus on is data onboarding tools, right? Making it very easy to onboard data to the network, and specifically focusing on open source data onboarding tools. So we really see our role as the foundation in sort of getting the ecosystem together, getting the right people in the right room, talking about the right things. This is one of those rooms. And talking about what we as the network should be prioritizing in order to make sure that we meet our biggest theme for the year, which is making Filecoin work seamlessly and finding product market fit.
I guess given the themes of today too, just in amongst those strategic priorities, what's your hot take on AI and DePIN for 2025?
I think there's so much incredible stuff going on in the AI universe right now, particularly as it relates to decentralized AI. I think a really big theme of the last, since really the launch of ChatGPT has been AI has been, I think, very, very, very centralized. And I think we're just now beginning to see a lot of decentralized AI projects pop up. And not only that, but also decentralized compute, right? Not having only the companies that can afford just a massive amount of GPUs being the companies that can actually run AI models, but actually decentralizing compute as well, so you can really put the power of AI into the hands of everyone rather than just a few corporations.
I love that. I think that's something that people have talked about a lot, but we haven't so much seen it in action. So it's really great to see so many projects really focused on bringing that to fruition. Look, as we close out the CoinDesk live stream today, I just got one final question for you. I was interested in terms of looking ahead. What do you think are the most exciting opportunities in the Filecoin network that you're looking forward to seeing come to life?
Well, I have to say, I think even just today, what you're seeing is, on this stage, just on this live stream, what you're seeing is it being easier and easier to use the network, more and more user-friendly, really being able to bring this to the masses in a way that wasn't possible without these really user-friendly tools. So I'm really, really excited about making Filecoin work seamlessly this year, and really increasing the number of people who are using the network.
Love that big focus on improved UX and driving adoption. That is fantastic. Thank you so much, Marta. That's been so interesting, and you've given us a lot to look forward to in 2025.
Thanks so much.